The Vegas Golden Knights made the biggest splash of the offseason when they traded for Mitch Marner. Chris Gawlik of Locked On VGK joins us to talk about the impact of the trade and where the Golden Knights go from here. All that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Vegas Golden Knights, Chris Gawlik. And Chris, the Golden Knights made the biggest splash of the offseason, trading for and signing Mitch Marner. Talk to me about the impact of this move right here.
I mean, I'm sure everyone's absolutely shocked that the Golden Knights made the biggest offseason splash. They never chase the shiny new toys or go after the biggest names in free agency or trade targets. So I know this is groundbreaking news. No, I mean, this is incredibly exciting. The Golden Knights had two choices. They could have got more depth pieces, did what they did last year, which was good enough to win a regular season banner. They won the division. Who cares? No one does. That team was not good enough come playoff time. Now, there were some injuries and a lot of things happening there, but at the end of the day, that team was not good enough as is. So they went out and found another superstar to complement Jack Eichel and the rest of that lineup, and it's very exciting.
Where do you see, who will Mitch Marner's likely line mates be?
What you're seeing right now is a top line being penciled of Eichel, Marner, and Barbashev. I personally would prefer to see Eichel and Marner on separate lines. One, because they're both 100-point players. Of those 100 points, probably 65 to 70 of them are going to be assists. Neither one of them is really that shoot-first type of player. So what I would like to see is a top line of Eichel, Barbashev, and Stone, which is how it was for most of last season, injuries pending, of course. And then a second line, which really would be line 1A more than anything, of Tomas Hertl, Pavel Dorofeev, who had 34, 35 goals last year, and, of course, Mitch Marner. That would – and then your third line now really quickly ends up being Saad, Smith, and Carlson. And then you have Sissons, Brett Howden, who's getting forgotten about right now in Kolesar. So you have four really balanced lines that are really more about defense first than they are offense.
Who are some of the players do you think that will benefit most from Mitch Marner, and who's going to lose some ice time and probably be a little disappointed by the addition?
Brett Howden might be the first one, because Howden's a strange story. He had 23 combined goals, I believe, in his 3 previous seasons, and then he puts up 23 goals last year with the Vegas Golden Knights. So he might have seen himself possibly being penciled in that top 6, and this might wind up pushing Howden down a little bit. But Howden's the Swiss Army knife of the Vegas Golden Knights forwards right now. He could play center on the bottom 3 lines. He could play in the top 6 on the wing if he needs to. So I don't think it's going to impact him negatively too much. Smith, Saad, they're both cemented down on the third line. I think you're okay there. As far as players that would benefit, I would love to see Dorofeev and Mitch Marner together. Dorofeev, shoot first, sniper, very good around the net, willing to get dirty. And we know Mitch Marner's capable of putting up 70-plus assists. Most of those apples wind up going to Dorofeev. And then, of course, there would be Tomas Hertl there to clean up the loose change in front of the net.
You mentioned you would prefer to have Eichel and Marner split up at 5-on-5. What about on the power play?
Oh, power play, you're loading up, right? See, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because Marner's arrival is going to force some type of change on the top or the second, whatever, top 2, whatever Vegas was last year in the regular season on that power play. that original unit was some combination of Eichel and Stone and Theodore and Dorofeev and Hurdle. So you're not taking Stone away from the bumper position, I don't think. Hurdle 50% plus in the faceoff dot. You're not taking him away from there. Jack Eichel is a career 46%. You don't want Eichel taking that first faceoff of the power play unit. So this is where it's going to be a little bit interesting to see how Coach Cassidy manages that. But you will see Eichel and Marner together. And I don't like the idea of bumping Mark Stone off of that unit, but that might be what ends up happening unless Eichel can improve in the dot.
Obviously, in Toronto in particular, criticism about Marner's playoff performance. How do you feel about that? And does it even enter your thought process?
Toronto's irrelevant. They haven't won a Stanley Cup since before most of those books written behind you. No, I mean, listen, the Leafs haven't been able to figure things out. And while the Leafs are much, much, much farther along as an organization as like the Buffalo Sabres were, I do compare the situations where, simply put, the Leafs could not ice a team for the last 60 years or something like that to win a Stanley Cup. So is part of that on Marner? Absolutely. And the glass half full, Marner has 63 points in 70 career playoff games. The glass 3/4 empty, according to most Leafs fans, is Marner disappears when it matters most in the playoffs in games 5 through 7. And to be fair, there are scoring metrics and stats that do support that claim from Leafs fans. I look at the Golden Knights right now, cover your ears, Leafs fans, as a much better organization as far as success goes. They've been to 2 Stanley Cup finals, 4 conference finals in the last 8 years of their entire existence. Insert comment from Leafs fans about the league, about Gary Bettman spoon-feeding Vegas an organization here. But I think the Golden Knights are in a far better circumstance with the balance of the team, the locker room handling, the front office than the Leafs. So long story longer, I compare this to the Eichel situation. Eichel gets out of Buffalo. He takes his game to another level. Marner's been in the playoffs, so maybe there's not as much of growth that you'll see compared to Eichel, but I do think you will see a similar upward trajectory once Mitch Marner gets comfortable in Vegas.
One other thing that people have talked about is the media spotlight. In Toronto, obviously, it is very, very heavy. How will the difference between the culture in Toronto and in Vegas impact Mitch Marner?
The media circumstances are much different. I interviewed Ryan Reeves the previous year in the offseason, and it was at a charity softball event that happens every summer here in Vegas that Jack Eichel puts together. Riley Smith used to put it together, kind of had a passing of the torch, but now Riley Smith is back. So that's a complicated matter. But long story short, we were talking to Revo and he made a comment. He said something about the media situation is a lot different. And he alluded to it being a little bit tougher. So I said, what are you calling us soft? He's like, no. There's just more of them in Toronto. So long story short, Ryan Reeves thinks the media in Vegas is a little softer than what's happening in Toronto. But I think the pressure is just as tough or tougher from the front office to deliver in Vegas because of all the accolades I just mentioned, what Vegas has done in the last 8 seasons. You don't sign Marner with the aspirations of Stanley Cup or bust. A trip to the conference final is not a successful season, in my opinion, and most likely in the opinion of Bill Foley, who owns the Vegas Golden Knights. Injuries, a lot of things can change that, of course. But it's Stanley Cup or bust, and the team is still trying to improve. Rasmus Andersson is on the table from Calgary, and I think that's going to happen this week. That's just me.
You talk about what still could happen. What's the biggest need they're looking to fill right now?
I mean, really quickly, goaltending is a concern. Akira Schmidt as the backup, who did not do well at the American League level last year, that's a concern. Aiden Hill was better than good. He was pretty solid in the regular season, 50 appearances for the first time in his career. Good on Aiden to shake a lot of his health issues. With the loss of Pietrangelo, you're really missing a key cog in that defense who can put up 20 minutes a game, 20 responsible minutes. Yes, you got Hannafin and McNabb and Theodore and such, but Zach Whitecloud, I don't think is ready to make that step, which is why Rasmus Andersson is on the table. And I think that deal gets done sometime in a week or two.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. And I know you'll have it covered every step of the way. Chris, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
Yep, you can find me arguing with Leafs fans at TD Chris G. That's a touchdown TD Chris G on Twitter. And then, of course, Locked On Vegas Golden Knights on YouTube and anywhere you can catch your podcasts.
Chris, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and even makes regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, bet just $5 and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.